welcome. This is The Hobbit, written by Tolkien, of fantasy. So while you're reading The Hobbit, I want you to keep in mind the ideas of fantasy. Take a look at the pictures right here to see what they have in common. Take a look at the top row, the bottom row, one of them. What do you notice? What do you notice about the colors, the characters? Is there something you know about the genre of fantasy? It's different than the other genres. It is fiction, but there's something about fantasy that makes it much different than realistic fiction. What do you want to know? Is this a genre that you have explored before? Take a second and click on the Lego wizard to the right. If you don't have a background, or if you just want to brush up on your background of what fantasy is. Things to remember when we are talking about fantasy. Most important, it is a make-believe story. Somewhere the story was created in some genius's mind. Here we have Tolkien. And the ideas in the book are very relatable to us in real life. We are sent on journeys, quests. There is good, there is bad. We have protagonists and antagonists, this idea of good versus evil, light and darkness. Along the way, in whatever you choose to read, you need to understand what it is that you are reading. And this is something I use with my students. They're called the signposts, the notice and note. While you're reading, what do you notice? What do you pick up on? How can you connect to the character or the setting? Do you find yourselves relating to the good guy or the bad guy? One of the most popular signposts that I have is the memory lane. What memory is happening here? Why is the character thinking back on this? So review these words of the wiser again and again, tough questions, contrast and contradictions, that aha moment in memory lane. Brief backstory of Tolkien. You have some facts here. I believe it is very important for you to know something about the author who wrote your story. The story you picked up, who wrote it, because some parts of their life you are going to see. Here's an introduction to our characters. Bilbo, our main character. Gandalf, very vital, very important character, but notice how much he is or is not in the text. Smaug, the antagonist, the villain. Thorin and Gollum. So those images below are from the movie, The Hobbit, right? So when you have a classic, it's only bound that classic tale is going to be turned into a movie by Hollywood. But the book is where you should focus, right? When Hollywood or someone takes a classic, they end up changing parts of the text based off of the descriptions. Which character do you find yourselves relating to? Not physically, not materialistically, but based off of their descriptions and who they are. Do you think you could find a piece of each character, even the bad guys, even those villains? There's a reason why someone's a villain. Can you relate in any way? Middle-earth is where this story happens to take place, but there is the map. This map will be used in the Lord of the Rings series. It is used in The Hobbit. Look, you even have Oz up there in Narnia, Wonderland, Whoville, all of these make-believe settings that are so prevalent in our childhood, stories that come from our childhood, because this idea of fantasy is innocent. It is childlike. For this assignment, if you choose, you don't have to, but it's where you're allowed to be creative. Where do you want your fantasy world to take place? What does it look like? Who's there? What is there? Is there a villain? What's the setting? Is it vast green meadows, or are we in some Icelandic desolate place? Think about it. It's creative, it's yours, it's fantasy, it's make-believe. Conflict. You can't have a story without conflict, and there are many kinds. Two of the most popular types of conflict you'll find in any story, whether it is fiction or nonfiction, is conflict versus self and conflict versus man, right? So this idea of man versus self, when you are in conflict with yourself, when you are in conflict with having to make a decision, that imagery of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, the should I do it or should I not? And the other most popular type of conflict is conflict with man. You are fighting against an opposing force, an outside force, the villain, another character, right? So again, you could click on this little video, this image right here of the basic types of conflict, and it'll take you to a video. Time to reflect. It's always important to reflect when you're reading. How can you tie it into you, right? So what's the last type of conflict you faced? Was it versus yourself? Think of the world we are living in right now. Think of the world you as an individual are living in right now. What conflict are you facing? Was it solved? If so, how and why? Get to the root of why a conflict is solved. Themes are some universal idea. They can be applied. These lessons that we learn can be applied to any culture, to any gender, to any race, to any religion, right? That idea of treat others the way you would like to be treated. You know, be kind just because it's the right thing to do. In here we have these other types of themes, these themes of coming of age, you know, when you're growing up. Life comes full circle. This idea of greed or courage and bravery that you find, you muster up in yourself. And then this idea of legacy, how you want to be remembered. Lots of stuff to think about before you even start reading The Hobbit, right? So what I want you to think of is this idea of, and I wrote it right here for you, do we as individuals have power over who we become? That's a powerful question. Or is it already predetermined by factors like our family, our wealth, our race, where we live, where we don't live? Do we have power over who we become? Something to think about, something that relates to not just the main character Bilbo in this story, but many characters. Do you have power over who you are? Think about it. All right. So for next time, read chapters 1 and 2. There will be lots to discuss, and I'll see you then. We'll talk then.